Hi, everyone. I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and thank you so much for tuning into one of our talks today. We are a year-round talk series bringing you the best creative voices across film, television, and theater. And today I'm so thrilled to dive back into talking about the current Fox show Next with the wonderful Michael Mosley and Jason Butler Harner. And I wanted to start by asking you both a little bit about working with Manny Cotto, who's the showrunner, and he comes from the background of working and showrunning on 24. And so I think there's such an interesting tone to this show and the way that he really uses and builds suspense through characters as well. And I was interested if that kind of informs anything in the way that you have to think about your performances, or if it's kind of a subset because it's about the show overall and less about the individual moments with your characters.
Well, I think Manny, that's kind of up to Manny. I mean, I don't know about you, Jason, but like, yeah, Manny's just really good at that cliffhanger. He's really good at keeping that clock ticking and, keep us all, all the heroes racing, towards the goal. So it's like, I can't really, that's kind of structural to me. That's like kind of Manny's sport. Like as an actor, I feel like we're just kind of in the mud with each other a little bit.
I think it definitely helps me because I think on any project in whatever medium, you're looking for signals for what you think that the tone's going to be, what the artistic integrity is going to be. And so the thing with Manny that I did take into consideration, actually, and you just reminded me of it when we were going into the process, was I did think about 24 and I did think about how those characters were revealed over time. And so it helped me trust earlier on that things would be revealed later. And also, frankly, like this is an ensemble show. So, and I come from the theater, so I'm very appreciative of ensemble. And that means that in this week's episode, we're going to take a look at CM a lot. And hopefully in next week's episode, we're going to look at Ted a lot. But it helps that Manny's background help make me feel more secure about the possibility of like really appreciating what you're going to get in this episode, and what's coming may be different, but it's not going to be without thought.
Yeah. And one of the really interesting things about the writing is you have all of these characters who are battling this artificial intelligence. And, as you kind of mentioned throughout the episodes, it starts to reveal a lot of information about each of them. And so we get that great backstory on everybody. And I was interested if that kind of altered and changed how much work you needed to do in terms of crafting and creating backstory for your characters, because there are elements of it that are given to you within the script in that way.
I was lucky enough that when we spoke about Ted and the brother relationship, because we did have a conversation early on before I came on full time, was I just wanted to know is this Cain and Abel? Is Ted going to be the evil brother? And if so, I wasn't quite as interested in it. And so fortunately, I did know enough going in that like that wasn't what was going to happen. And I had started, you always sort of create your own backstory and you decide whether how much you're going to share and with who your collaborators are and how much they want to know, or how it may not be a good idea to share what you're thinking. And so I just thought, I just kept thinking, like, as things unfolded, they revealed some things. There's some things that come up in episode 4 and 5, for instance, that I did not know going in, but were great revelations of character that I was very grateful to get to play and do and flesh out Ted.
And that's always one of the things that I find so fascinating about the work of being an actor within television, is you're having to make so many choices without having all the information to hand. So how do you kind of navigate that journey of needing to determine all those elements when you're saying that some of the details that even just in episode 4, episode 5, you didn't have when you were having to make creative choices as you developed your characters?
Yeah, I mean, like a play is kind of finite, right? Like it's, it ends, and it's been done years and years and years and over and over and over again. So it's gospel, but with TV, and a movie the same way. It's like A and Z and it ends, but with TV, there's a lot of trust, because you don't know if I've got a brother that's going to show up in season 2, or something like that. You got to be loose, and you just got to trust, you got to trust the date that brought you there,
I think you had to dance with the one that brought you. I like that. I did have this. I remember one time I was doing a play. I've collaborated with this director in New York, or whatever, in New York, like this guy Ivo Van Hove, and he something he said one time blew my mind, and it's carried with me in all other projects. Where one time we were working on this production of Hedda Gabler. It was a very, we'll say, non-traditional production of Hedda Gabler, though the script was the same Christopher Hampton translation. Anyway, we got to the fourth act, and this was a production where like people were pouring V8 on Elizabeth Marvel's head, and it was very different. Anyway, and so he's like, well, what do you think you should do? I can't do his accent. He's Flemish. Anyway, and I said, I don't know. I was like, so I was thinking aloud, and I was like, well, in a traditional production of Hedda, this is what happens in Act 4. So Tessman, blah, blah, blah. So the arc would be this. And he got like really mad, and he was like, arc. What is arc? You go here. Character goes here. Audience makes arc. And I was like, it blew my mind, because within certain parameters of responsibility and artistic integrity, it was freeing to say, oh, and especially it works very well in a a series television format where things have to change over hopefully many years of and seasons, where you just, if you do commit really wholly here, it will reveal itself later. There are still things that I've definitely had the experience. I mean, I'm sure Mike has been burned too, where you create things or things that they have been asked of you to create, whether it's an accent or a backstory, and then they just suddenly get cut for whatever reason. I mean, I've had spouses cut, children cut, whole things. You're like, I really based this whole character on the fact that he came from, his parents abused him, and they're like, yeah, we didn't like it. And you're like, okay.
And I also, I love that you're bringing up theater, because there's a number of the cast who've worked in that space at all. And you were both touching on how it is such an ensemble cast. And I was just also really interested in hearing a little bit more about what everybody's individual working styles were and how that really melded together, because it comes together so cohesively on screen with the way that you all flow in scenes together. So I was interested in kind of what that looked like in terms of the way that you would all work together before you start filming to get it to those places.
Jason doesn't work unless he's got his room temperature cucumber water like right at his right, and he has to have his Uggs on. You're not allowed to look him in the eye, and he doesn't do his half of coverage. He
I would benefit. I would benefit if I had half of those requirements. I would benefit if I just had one Uggs. The idea of like my skinny legs and Uggs is hilarious to me. I didn't get to listen. You should. Some things happen later in the season where I get to perform with. I got to act with more people, but for the most part, for a great part of this whole season, I didn't get to work with everybody. So it was kind of interesting how I do it. Everybody has their own style. I will say one thing that was really great was, especially in the pilot and the second episode, Glenn Ficarra and John Requa directed. They directed it in such a way, especially group scenes with technical jargon. They directed it really fast with two cameras over shoulders. So it just made it so much easier and so much fun. Because a lot of times when there's a lot of faces on the screen, I've been in situations where you're slowly working around, and it can become, it just takes a different kind of focus, and often it just drags down. So there was an energy of just catching things and going, and also allowing us some freedom within the script a little bit here and there, you know what I mean? So that was really,
but it's handheld and it's like fast and loose like that. It's fun. It's much more athletic or something, not to be dorky about it, but it's much more fun that way. You know what I mean? It is when it's just sticks and we're coming around the table. But it's true, we were kind of coupled off on the show. So it's like me and Gina were kind of, it's like we're kind of coupled off. So it's been fun to watch the show for me, just because I get to see everybody else's work that I didn't get to see. And I'm really proud of this cast.
Yeah, it was funny. Gerardo was like, and he's great. Obviously, Evan, his son, Evan Whitten, who plays Ethan, he's so great. But Gerardo was like, I've been acting with Evan for like many episodes, which is awesome. But he's like, it's interesting in terms of the difference of having a grown up there. I knew John casually. I've never worked with John. I knew John casually, and I know that John has done a tremendous amount of theater. And it was interesting to observe, especially how it's really interesting to see especially how the number one is setting the tone and how they work. And he's very free and a great mix of vitality and some theater stuff in terms of what's actually happening, and also the economy of it for a camera lens. That was really helpful. in our scenes.
Yeah. Was there much of an opportunity for table reads or rehearsals before you do it? And if so, kind of like what were some of the great discoveries that you found about your character through having that time to be with the rest of the cast and look at their interactions together before you were filming scenes?
I love a table read. Like I'm always advocating for a table read. They become, even though there's a part when you're doing a table read, in some productions where you do, in terms of the schedule of a film set, a TV set, where you do start wondering, as the person who's advocating for the table read, why are we doing this? Why do we all have to get here? You know, but I appreciate it just because getting to feel like you're all creating something, and sort of similar to, you know, tangential from what Mike was saying, like to be reminded, oh, there's this whole other thing going on here. I don't know that I had any particular revelations of character, but I do like to witness, and it's easy in those communal situations to hear what themes, to be reminded of what themes and you know, tagging of ideas and concepts that the writers are coming up for us, to be reminded of that and to be cognizant of it when I go into acting. Those things are helpful for me, you know, if it's family dynamics or whatever the broad scope is, to be reminded of that so that I'm thinking about that before I do my scene. I also like to know, even though it can change very much, obviously, especially in the edit, I do like knowing what scenes as scripted come before and after me. I do like knowing, oh, there's a world where I can imagine and feel like I have some control over my contribution about energetically what's coming in before and after. And so my job is to come in this way, even though, you know, some percentage of the time it gets re-edited differently and it works how it works.
Do you find that useful in the same way, Michael, or is it different for you?
Yeah, to me, the table read is just kind of like it's like a reminder of kind of, you know, this is the band, you know what I mean? And this is everybody. And like, it's, you know, this guy plays drums, this guy plays bass, this guy plays, you know, it's good to kind of just see the group again and be reminded, because yeah, when you peel off and it's just me, you know, it's just, you know, a couple people, and it just, you know, because, you know, you do the scene over and over and over, and it can die. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So the first time when everybody's together, and, you know, I haven't seen Jason in a week or whatever, and it's good to see him back. And then I see him doing his thing as Ted, and it's like, oh, good. You know, this is why we're here, and this is cool, and we're going to make something cool.
The other thing is, you know, especially when you're on location in other cities, which part of the great joy is, you know, we were in Chicago for the bulk of the series, shooting the pilot in Vancouver, and you can, I don't know about you, Mike, but you know, I'm there's a word for it, but it's like it's a mix of being an extrovert and an introvert as an actor. And so when I'm in other cities, I love experiencing those other cities and everything like that. But I can get in this mix of you can be by yourself in your little rented 1-bedroom studio apartment for a lot of time. And then also when the opportunity to go out and be together as a cast happens, you know, we're finicky beings, creative beings, and sometimes that extra effort isn't going to happen for me. So I appreciate the other part of just having an occasion where you are together socially. Does that make sense? Like, it's sort of sometimes the cycle, which I do love very much, of being in another city, showing up to do your work, and then having a day off or 2 days off. I like it, but it also can become this funny little, like, you know, those wheelie go around things as a kid that you would hang on, and it's like a good push for me, those communal experiences. And then also just a late night hang with the cast and seeing what happens when everybody gets drunk.
Well, I never did that. What are you talking about? That never happened.
Never heard of it.
Just because you don't remember it doesn't mean it didn't happen.
100%. Somebody has it on their phone somewhere.
And then, Michael, I wanted to kind of like ask you a little bit about some of the layers that we're starting to see through your character, through CM, because there's so many interesting facets to his backstory. You know, his prior involvement with an alt-right group, which it feels like that's going to be a thread that really continues to grow throughout the season. And I was really interested in kind of what you found useful to dive into in terms of research tools to really understand the space that he would have been in, what that would have been like emotionally and mentally to be in that space, and then to have stepped away from it as well, and the way that that still kind of residually sits with him in certain moments.
Yeah, I mean, he's a strange cat, CM. You know, this voice is out there. His politics aren't my politics, but these politics exist, and his voice is out there. And it's not really my job to kind of judge that. I'm supposed to kind of just be in it. My thing was, I just wanted him to be, I didn't want him to be like a white nationalist with a heart of gold. Like I wanted him to be, if these were his convictions at one point, I wanted that to be real. And if he was regretful in any way, which we'll find out, you're going to get to learn more about him and his past as the season progresses. But I just wanted that atonement to be real. And that was kind of my only thing with regard to attacking CM, because yeah, I don't know. I remember when I read the script, I just thought, I was like, oh, I think I have a pitch on this guy. And I didn't really have to, it wasn't really about his politic. It was just kind of who he was, and kind of just, I knew these guys in Iowa. They're kind of quiet. They don't say, they don't say much, but when they say it, they kind of, and they kind of have that look in their eye, like, you don't know if they're going to like kill you for no reason. You know what I mean? Just kind of, they're just kind of, I don't know. So I don't know. I just thought I had a pitch on the guy, but I don't know. Does that answer your question? I don't know.
It does, and it's interesting that you kind of mentioned that point of how they tend to be very quiet, because that's actually one of the things I thought was so interesting about your performance and the way that you bring him to screen is, he's not the loudest guy in the room. He's not the first person to respond to something verbally, but there's so much going on through that. So was there kind of a unique challenge in the way that you had to bring that to screen, where he's really kind of hanging back a little bit more as an observer, but you're still building in those layers to him?
I don't know. I mean, I like to stare, to stare through. Are we allowed to cuss on this thing? I like to stare a fucking hole through somebody. You know what I mean? That's fun. As an actor, it's fun to kind of play cowboy a little bit. It's fun to do that kind of stuff,
Yeah. And then Jason, with your character, one of the interesting things is he is such a public figure within the tech world. And, that is a space that feels slightly accessible in terms of, we've got our Mark Zuckerbergs, we've got, so many people that we see within the public sphere in that space. Was it useful at all to kind of dive into any of those public figures and look a little bit more into kind of their background to understand your character at all?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, it was really interesting. That was where I will say the costume design was a fascinating conversation, especially for the first 2 episodes, because Kim Wilcox took over for the series, and Deborah Basso, who did the pilot and establishing it. But what I did was I did do some research first on siblings in business together. So I looked at, I've talked about this before, but I looked at Roy and Walt Disney. People don't really know Roy Disney. And I looked at that dynamic. I read interviews with the Williams sisters, the Olsen sisters, the Wright brothers. I read just a couple things it was important to me to focus on the brother relationship and create some ideas about what that had been. And basically being I just used, for instance, John and my real age difference, and was like, okay, what's it like to have a brother who is so smart and takes up a lot of energy in the room? And I have friends who have, were created basically partially to take care of brothers that were sort of savanty. So I thought of that first, and then I started taking a look around. And then I was, of course, when we were coming up with the clothing design, the wardrobe design, we of course were looking at like iconic Steve Jobs or whomever, and Elon Musk, and what do we want to take and what do we not want to take. But I will say on the clothing front, I want to say I've never really wanted to take anything more from, there's a couple jackets that I got to wear in this show where I was like, could I please just have that one jacket? But I don't.
Yeah. And then Michael, in terms of CM's work within cybersecurity and working as a hacker, again, I always think there's such an interesting way that that's brought to life on screen, where you kind of ultimately have to make someone typing a password look really interesting and really dynamic, and was kind of interested in the way that you did that. And again, also kind of what access you had in terms of research tools that you were able to pull forward into that.
Well, I'm I'm kind of Grandpa Mosley when it comes to tech. I just got this new TV. And I still don't know how it works. At one point, I know if I hit a button, it asks me if it wants me to connect it to my other appliances. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Why does my TV need to talk to I don't know. So I don't know a bunch about this stuff. My biggest asset was getting to work with Eve, because I was coupled up with Eve for a lot of the show. And Eve is like, like a live, like a savant. Like she just, like her bullshit meter was great. Like, cause like we would be reading something and I was like, I don't know, this seems a little, is this technology exists? And he would be like, no. And I'll tell you why, it does exist. And I listened to it in a podcast and blah, blah, blah. So having Eve at my side was really helpful because she's like a genius when it comes to this stuff. She just absorbs everything.
We have this thread with some of the actors from the cast, most of us, and it's funny how, you know, when we're trying to do things like share watch tonight on Medium, you know, on platforms, it's funny who at what moment will forget on how to actually do it, how to upload it correctly. I just think it's so funny given our show. We'll be like, and it has been me where I'm like, how do you get this to download and post it and correctly? And then after finishing up on Eve, like you can also set down your phone and pick it up, and there's 78 text messages on everything with articles and podcasts and links to things related to the show that I don't know about you, Mike, but I haven't gone to listen or read them, but I appreciate that they're there for when I will go.
I do, I appreciate them too. It's hard, I think it would be impossible to keep up with Eve, you know, I mean, she's, yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that's so interesting overall in terms of the technology within the show as well is that you have this central antagonist to all of the characters that doesn't exist in a physical form. So how is that kind of a unique experience for all of you having to essentially ultimately act against someone that's not there as a scene partner in any way?
I think it's such a great challenge, which I'm very respectful and appreciative of for Manny and the showrunner and the writers and everybody, because we're so used to, it's so much easier to have a physical thing that we're like, oh, we're going to hate that. But because of our relationship with technology today, where we rely on it so much that we kind of don't, it's almost like our brains can't fully fathom what this unknown secret enemy is. It's like carbon monoxide, basically. So it's been interesting. It was interesting working on the show to make sure that we weren't just overacting all the time about tension and this, or just jargon. And so it was a great, I think one of the fun opportunities was being in crisis and minds thinking quickly. And then when there'd be flashes of the anxiety or the fear or that whatever was coming out, basically trying to be very conscious that since you don't have, your acting partner isn't a physical person that's evil, it's just something that's pervasive, and it could be on your phone or it could be in your thermostat or it could be in your car, and how you add that without looking like, you know, you're jonesing for some drug.
Yeah.
Not to spoil,
was that the same for you?
You have scenes with you talk to Next at times. Not to spoil, but I mean, I think that's a fair tease, right? Next and Jason will eventually have scenes. I don't think I talked to Next, so I think I just hear about Next, and I'm just trying to fight Next. But I don't think I ever talked to Next. But you do.
I do talk, and there is a physical manifestation later, but it's not a person.
Crazy. Next is everywhere. The call's coming from inside the house.
That is the premise of the show. And for each of you, was there a particular kind of scene or facet of your character that you found to be the most challenging aspect of kind of like portraying them on screen at all when you were filming?
Got cold. Chicago got kind of cold. That was kind of challenging.
It is true. We had a joke in the crew, like every time I'd have a scene that was outside in Palo Alto, there would be snow, and I was like, or rain, and I was like, how are we? Okay, how do you so there was that funny thing, it's so silly, but like underdressing of thermal layers, to keep you warm, and then to make sure that things that your body does to stay warm didn't happen. But I don't know, I don't think I had some great revelations of character that came, nothing that was hard. I would say there's some stuff that comes later on in the season. There were a couple scenes that I was like, oh boy, this is going to be an interesting day. That you're grateful for, but they were like, oh, this is going to be interesting to go to. I didn't have anything character-wise. I will say, if I can share one thing that I really did appreciate, is that I have a wife in this series that we're going to meet, and it was a great local actress named Shawn Cross, I believe is her last name, from Chicago, and that was a great it was just a great opportunity of collaboration with someone new, and also an opportunity to say, hey, listen, we get to create whatever we want I mean, they've written some things here, but we don't know how much the wife is going to be around. So for me, it was a great inspirational point to be like, let's create this whole other story and dynamic to who this guy is, which then informs also why he's so close to Abby and what is that, you know, it stirred a lot of imagination for me, and very fulfilling. And then she got to come back too, which made it really fun.
Yeah. And for each of you as well, kind of what are the ways in which you feel like taking on these characters on this series really allowed your craft as an actor to just like continue evolving?
It's, to me, every time I get on a new job, it's just like getting to work with Jason. Like we were on Ozark, but we just like hung out, but we never got to like share, you know, be on set together and, you know, bang heads in a scene together, you know, and, you know, getting to work with Slattery. I mean, that's, to me, is always the best. It's getting to be in a new group of people, a new band of misfits. And we just kind of, you know, we get handed these pages and we got to like put it on its feet and figure out how it's going to work and how to make it work and how to make it better. Because again, like with theater, you know, you'll do the glass menagerie. Everybody, it's like you know, you could hang that play on a wall in a museum and everybody's going to have their own, you know, but with film, once it's burned, it's gone. Once you say that line, once you do that scene, that's it. No one's going to remake next, you know what I mean? And no one's going to remake this scene. So it lives and dies in the moment. And so, you know, you're only as good as the actor in front of you, to me. And I think that's kind of the magic about it. And so I'm just always happy to be in another group of people trying to figure out, you know, another story, another place, another time.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Another opportunity to work and see how to be better and keep growing. You know, I love that. I love observing how to communicate. I think sometimes people take it too much for granted about the nature of collaboration, and especially actors function in that, not only being able to, you know, hit your mark, do your thing, go to places emotionally, and some technical things, but also basically energetically on a set in a group of people, which is, listen, a group of people at this point, here we are months after we've been pretty much groups of one or groups of two. But I always like that opportunity very much. There's also a unique thing on the first season of a show, which is that you think you have an idea about what it is, certainly when you audition for the job, when you took the job, and when you started, but you don't know for so long what the actual thing is until you see it. Like when we all got to see the first 3 episodes finally in, I don't know, September, maybe it was so exciting to be like, oh, this is how the cake turned out. We all were hoping it was going to turn. We were nervous about this. Was it going to lean too heavy into melodrama or this or that? And so we all were so happily relieved and excited when it was much more natural and simple and alive.
And thank you so much to both of you for taking time out of your day today to talk to us about the show. And for everyone watching, if you haven't already, you can catch episodes of Next airing on Fox.
Thank you.
Thank you.